Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you new here, my name is Donna, and for those of you not new, thank you so much for continuing to come back and support my channel. I appreciate all of you so very much. Today I'm doing the next video in my palette roulette series, in which I let an app choose a palette for me. I utilize it throughout the week. I come back to you, I show you some pictures, talk to you about my experience with the palette, and then we use the app to pick another palette. Today's palette is the Sigma Enchanted palette. So this palette is a palette that came to me pretty recently. Actually, I think I picked it up in September. I don't know. I got a wild hair up my butt and decided to finally pull the trigger on some Sigma brushes that I wanted. At the same time, I picked up this palette, and about a few weeks later, they came out with Untamed. And I wished I had waited, but then I ended up picking up Untamed as well. So this is the Sigma Enchanted palette. This is what the packaging looks like. It is a very like cardboard packaging that is covered in this iridescent glow. It's very pretty, very shifty, and it's kind of got these like leaves that are, you can feel them on the packaging, so they're like almost embossed onto it. The back of the packaging does have the shade range in this palette, as well as some information on the palette. It does tell you that it has a 12-month shelf life and gives you some information on Sigma. When you open it up, there is a decent sized mirror on it. There's a really pretty protector in there. And then these are the shades in this palette. And I think when I pulled this palette last week, I did say it kind of reminds me of like half grunge, half fairy. And I would say that that is accurate. I called it a punk fairy princess kind of vibe. Punk fairy goddess kind of vibe. I definitely get that from this palette, so that you can pull some really dark looks like what I've got on my eyes today out of this, but you can also pull some very fairy-like, very ethereal kind of looks out of this palette. It is snowing like crazy outside right now, just so you all know. There are 14 shades in this palette. It does cost $49, and there are 0.68 ounces of product in here. Each one of these pans is 0.0485, almost 49 ounces of product per pan. It does have a 4.7 star rating on Sigma, and it has a 4.9 star rating on Beauty Babe. But with that said, in a grand total, those two websites, they only have like 30 different reviews on there, so it's not a hugely reviewed palette, so it's really hard to say. I would say that I would probably rate this about 4.7 stars. There are some opportunities in this palette that I think could have been better, but other than that, like, it's a really decent palette. So I think I would give it that 4.7 star rating. There are 5 different finishes in this palette. So you have mattes, shimmers, dual chromes, frosts, and metallics. And it is gluten-free, cruelty-free, vegan, and lactose-free, which was weird because I think that's the first time I've ever seen that in my research on a palette. I was like, lactose-free. Yeah, I don't understand. I mean, I'm a lactose intolerant person, but I don't really look at my makeup and think, oh, this has lactose in it, I can't use it. But maybe there are some people out there that do. So with that said, there are 7 matte, 3 shimmers, 2 duochromes, 1 frost, and 1 metallic in this palette. This does come with a brush. You guys did see, hopefully, the little divot here. It does come with a brush in here. What's exciting about the brush that comes with this palette is it actually has 2 different brushes on it that are actual brushes as part of their line. So you do have the E54, which is the medium, why can't I read this? The medium sweeper. This is a brush that I didn't have in my collection of Sigma brushes prior to getting this dual-ended brush, and now I have this one and the one from Untamed, and these are amazing little brushes. They are so good at doing what you need them to do. This is a great little packer brush. And then you also have E38, which is the diffuse crease. This one I have in my collection, and now I have 2 more because I do have it on the Untamed one as well. I would say this isn't exactly my most favorite brush for blending. I do find it to be a smidge bit stiff for blending, but it is to create that diffused crease. So I get what the reasoning behind the stiffness of this brush is. I just need to figure out how to use it correctly to suit me. But I was really excited to get a dual-ended brush in both the Untamed and this palette because these are actual Sigma brushes. It's not like, you know, the ABH brush where you get this pokey, awful brush in every single one of those palettes and it's always the same and it's always so pokey and it's uncomfortable to use on your eyes. These do not. And this brush comes with the same warranty that all Sigma brushes come with, which is that 2-year warranty. What I would say about this palette is there's very distinct families of color in here, right? You have your pinks, you have your greens, and then you have your neutral tones. I think that this palette, because of the ethereal fairy-like nature down here, could have done with maybe a brighter pink matte than this, or a purple matte as well. I think it could have done without all of these different tones down here, maybe even done without these darker tones, since you do have a very lighter tone, very ethereal type thought process. How many times am I going to say ethereal about this palette? I don't necessarily think these darker tones need to be here, but from what I can gather, this black is in every single one of Sigma's palettes, and I don't know that that's necessarily something that needed to be present in this palette. I think it could have done with a matte purple or a matte, you know, bright pink, and it would have been a more versatile palette for me. I did find myself pulling from my singles to create a different color story while also being able to use this palette. There's a look that you will see that has a purple in it, and it is a purple matte that I had to pull from my singles in order to make the eye look that I wanted to make come to life. Most of it is this palette, but that purple is definitely from my singles. The shades in here are so silky smooth. They're just so buttery soft and finely milled, and they go on so nicely because of that. They feel good to the touch. They feel good on the skin. Even the metallic, which is this guy here, even this metallic doesn't have that like grippy feel you would expect with a metallic. It's very soft on your skin. I would say they perform best with a primer, but I don't think that it has anything to do, honestly, with the performance of the shadow. Without the primer, I still ended up with a good, you know, blend. I still ended up with a good pigmentation. I would say it maybe just comes right down to the longevity of it. Again, that's basically what a primer is for anyways, and in addition to helping you with laying it down, it's supposed to help you with the longevity of the shadows, and I really feel like that primer is going to give you that with these shadows. But I will say to that, I didn't really find a huge difference in wear time between wearing it with a primer and wearing it without. There was maybe a slight, like 1, maybe 2 hour difference. They still lasted on my eyes a good 8 to 10 hours before I saw any kind of fading in the shadows, and even these shimmers last forever on your lid without having any kind of primer underneath them. I would say that the metallic, that pink that I just showed you, you should probably use a tacky base underneath, because with the fallout of that metallic, I had pink metallicness all over my face from that shadow, and it was pure and simple. I have no doubt in my mind, because I didn't use tacky primer base with that shadow. So I worry about how well this palette might integrate into a darker, deeper skin tone, because a lot of these shadows, except for these 5 down here, a lot of these shadows weren't super deep in tone, even on my skin tone. And I'm pretty fair. I know that there are several shadows in this range that are not very deep, and you'll see that when we do the swatches. I worry about its usage on a deeper skin tone. It's mostly cool tone, but there's some surprising pops of warm in here. And if you are the kind of person that is searching for a one and done palette that is going to create those office friendly looks for you, this is probably your palette. It doesn't create a whole lot of dustiness in the pan, and therefore there's also not a whole lot of fallout on your face. There is fallout, don't get me wrong, but there's not a lot of fallout, and you notice it more so with the darker shades. It's a super easy palette to blend and work with, so you can create those really quick looks if you want to, and it is very office friendly as far as color scheme goes, unless you want to get deep and dark and bold. You can obviously create that with this palette as well. The last thing I'll say before we talk about the shades in here, the metallic here and duochromes in this palette, so these two here, really perform better as toppers. I put this as a topper on the outer section of my eye look today because I found that it just didn't really pop as much as I want it to in and of itself. With that said, I also didn't wet any of these shadows putting them on, so even this gold that's on my lid today, not wet. There's that. But these three really performed more like toppers. Not that they can't perform on their own, I just think that their opacity is a little bit sheer and you have to build it and build it and build it in order to get the opacity that you want from it, and sometimes that can tend to look a little bit creasy and cakey and whatever, so a lot of people maybe don't like that. So I am going to swatch these for you, and we're going to start up here on this top row and then move across. And then we're going to come back and start at this bottom row and move across. So these are the first four in the palette. We do have Quartz, which is a barely there beige matte. It is really pretty. I did use it in my brow bone today. I also used it in my brow bone quite often. It's also an amazing inner corner highlight. It is a really good beige matte shadow. Then we have this one here, which is called Sunburst, and it is, they call it a daylight marigold shimmer. I would say it reminds me of like margarine. It is a beautiful shimmer. It is in my inner corner today. Then we have this one here, which is called Budding. It is a peony pink shimmer. It's really, really pretty. And then we have this one here, which is a really, I mean, you can't hardly even see it. It is called Innocent, and it is a fair rosewood matte. I did use this as a crease color almost every single day. I don't think I used it in my crease today. I really just wanted to put it in there for that transition shadow. It's a really good base. Then we have the last three in that first row, and this one is called Metamorphosis. So there on top you can see its shiftiness, its duochrominess, and even though it looks very opaque on my swatch, it's really not exactly that opaque. Then we have this guy here, which is called Loam, and it's a sandy brown matte. It's a very cool tone brown. It is so, so pretty, and on top of this pink down here, it actually gives this like almost lavender shift to it, which makes just it transform any eye look. And then we have this one here, which is called Terra, and it's a tawny cinnamon matte, kind of a terracotta brown. These are the shadows in that first row. Hopefully you guys can see what I'm talking about when I say they're very light toned. These four down on bottom, granted only two of them are mattes, but the two mattes could be completely non-existent on a deep skin tone. Right, these are the first four in the second row, and the first one we have here is this one. This is the gold that is in my eye look today, and it is called Electrum. It is an electric gold shimmer. Then we have this one here, which is called Moonglade, and it's called a Regal Mauve Frost. It is kind of frosty. I would say it's kind of frosty. Then we have this one here, which is your metallic shade, and this one is called Plume. It's purple milkweed metallic, and again, this one performs really well as a topper. Then we have that one, which is called Cosmos. It's a galaxy green duochrome. It is in my eye look today. Hopefully you guys can see the shiftiness to it, but it is, as you can see down towards the bottom of it, it does just kind of disappear. So again, it performs so much more like a topper. That is one that I have used on its own as well, and it just didn't perform as well as I liked it to. And then these are the last three in that palette, and we have the first one being Claystone is what it's called. It's a hickory brown. Again, a little bit more cool toned brown. Then we have Evergreen, which is the green in my eye look today. It is a very deep, dark pine green matte. Sorry, this one is also a matte over here. But you guys can see it is almost black. It's so dark green. And then we have the black in the palette, which is called Wicked. I wouldn't necessarily say that this is my blackest black in my collection. And I think I've said this before. Their black almost looks like a sheen, like it's a satin almost. It has a little bit of like sheeniness to it. But these are the shadows in that second row. And the first four are shimmer shades of some sort, and then the last three are the matte shades. And hopefully you guys can see that black, how it just looks kind of sheeny. So with that said, this palette did launch in 2019. I do believe it was August of 2019. I just brought it into my collection this last year. Sigma has been my favorite discovery for myself of this year. Not that I didn't know that Sigma existed prior to this year, but it's the first time I tried this brand was this year, and I really dig them. I love their brushes. I love their eyeshadow palettes. This one I don't love quite as much as I love Untamed, but Untamed is more my color story when it comes down to it. This one is still beautiful. I love that you can get that grungy punk goddess vibe with the whole ethereal versus grunge color story to this. This is going to give you the best of both worlds for sure. But I didn't really love the metallic. I thought that the metallic was atrocious. Like, I put it on my lid and it just kind of exploded all over my face, and that wasn't amazing. I love that you don't have to necessarily wet these shimmers to make them look just so crazy awesome. And I didn't really experience any kind of patchiness that you normally experience with the darker shades. So like this green, the black, and the deep dark, or the deeper, I guess, not dark, but the deep brown. I didn't really experience any kind of patchiness with those like you sometimes experience in other formulations of those shades. It was a really pretty palette. It was really nice to use. I had a lot of fun with it. I did get a lot of use out of this palette. I think I only got a few pictures, sadly, but I did have a lot of fun with this palette. It will definitely stay in my collection. Again, it's a rather new palette to me anyway, so it will probably stay in my collection until I figured out what I was going to do with it. But I do enjoy the palette. I did enjoy the palette for sure. So I think I would say that if you were going to pick a palette from Sigma, well, they just came out with another one, and I know that they have 4 total, right? Because just recently they were doing a bundled deal where you could get all 4 of their palettes. So the Coeur de Rosa, which reminds me a little bit of Modern Renaissance. This one, Untamed, and then I think their newest one is called Warm Neutrals. It's really going to depend on the color story that you love, that speaks to you, on which palette I could, say go after. But what I would say is Sigma is a really good quality formulation. I really loved their formula. Do I think that they're worth the $49 for this palette? Here's what I would have to say about that. Like, I pay $45 for ABH, right? And they're mainstream. They're mainstream. They're out there in the stores. I can pick them up on their website. I can pick them up at Ulta. I can pick them up at Sephora. I can pick them up pretty much anywhere. With that said, most indie brands that only have just a web-based business, you are going to pay a little bit more for their palette. Do I think that the formulation in this is better than the ABH? I think that some people would say it is. I know that there's a ton of people out there that don't like ABH because of the powderiness of the formula, even though they love the pigmentation and they love the blendability of it. But they don't like the powderiness, the fallout, and that's their make or break, and that's fine. That never has been, never will be my make or break. But I think that if they like all those things about ABH but don't like the powderiness of ABH, they would find benefit and likability in Sigma, because Sigma reminds me a lot of ABH without all the crazy powderiness of it. So there's that. That's what I have to say about that. So with that said, we are going to pull another palette. For those of you who do not know, have not been around for the 108 of these that I have done thus far, I do use an app that I found in my Play Store. I do have a Samsung Note 9 I picked from the Play Store, and it is called the Decide Now app. I do have all of my palettes in this wheel, and as we get new palettes in, I do put them into the wheel. As we work through them in a palette roulette, or I've decluttered them, I do take them out of the wheel so that we hopefully are not picking them more than once or after they have left my building. So with that said, we just push the blue button there to spin the wheel. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I got the Ofra Glitch palette. That's exciting. This is also a relatively new palette to my collection, so I am going to go pull that out. I will be right back. This is relatively new to my collection. This is the Ofra Glitch palette. I do have the Glitch 2.0, and I think that's it. I don't think I have the third one yet. This is what the palette looks like. It's very pastel. We all know how I feel about pastels, but here's the true tea. I am excited about this palette because I can always put any of my single shadows with it, and these are more satin, I do believe. They look to be the same formulation as their highlighters. So that is exciting to me because I could put any of these into an eye look on the lid and it's going to look amazing, or at least I think so. So we will see. I hope that you guys will come back next week to learn more about what I think about this palette. I hope that you enjoyed this palette roulette today, going over the Sigma Enchanted palette. Do you have Sigma Enchanted? Please let me know if you do. Please let me know what your thoughts and feelings are on that palette. Have you been tempted by any Sigma palettes in the past? With that being said, please let me know your thoughts and opinions down below in the comment section. I would love to have a discussion with you guys down there. I hope that you did enjoy this video, and I hope that you enjoyed it so much that you're considering giving it a big thumbs up. It really does help our channels out here. It tells YouTube that there are people out there liking our videos, wanting to watch our videos, and maybe gives them some indication that they need to push them out to other people. I also hope that you're considering subscribing to my channel before you go. Hopefully you liked me or my content enough that that seems like a good choice, and it's totally free to do. So I don't know why you wouldn't want to. With me saying hi, how's it going, how you doing? I hope that you liked this content or me enough that you're considering subscribing to my channel before you go. It would warm my heart so much to have you as a part of my crazy YouTube life here, my crazy YouTube midlife crisis, and my wonderful YouTube family. I would love to see you down in my comment section, so even if you don't subscribe, please leave me a comment down there. I would love to have a conversation with you. I hope that December is treating you well. We're like within the next couple weeks, it's going to be Christmas. I hope that December is treating you well. I hope that you and your family are all doing great. I hope that everybody is well. I hope that you guys are keeping yourself safe. I hope that you're wearing your masks when you're out in public, if for no other reason but to protect yourself from the crazies walking around there all asymptomatic, spreading their germs everywhere. Nobody wants this craziness, so please keep yourself safe out there. I hope that you guys are loving each other, but loving each other from afar. And until next time, bye everyone.